Have you ever noticed how people spend their lives blaming others, circumstances, luck, even fate, while their own habits quietly destroy them? They wait for tomorrow, promise to change one day, and convince themselves that comfort is enough. But what if I told you the brutal truth, that your life only changes when you do, and until you face yourself with discipline, nothing will ever shift? It's like a man sharpening his sword every day, but never stepping onto the battlefield. The blade gleams, but it never cuts. Or think of a traveler in the desert, parched and exhausted, yet he keeps chasing mirages instead of digging where he stands. That's what most people do with their lives, chase illusions of comfort while wasting the only treasure they have: time. Because while the world wastes time chasing pleasure and distraction, you have a choice: remain as you are or rebuild yourself, rule by rule, habit by habit. And when you choose discipline, when you choose mastery, the life you once envied in others becomes the life you live yourself. So how do you cut through excuses, weakness, and fear? Without illusions, without delay, without wasting another day. Stay until the end, because these 8 brutal Stoic rules will not just challenge you, they will transform you. Let's get started. Number 1. Law of control. Let's talk about one of the most fundamental Stoic principles, the law of control. If there's one rule that can completely change the way you deal with negativity, it's this: stop obsessing over what you can't change. Think about how much of your mental energy gets wasted on things outside your control. What people think of you, how they behave, whether circumstances align in your favor or whether life feels fair. The truth is, the more you focus on things beyond your influence, the more powerless and frustrated you feel. That's the seed of negativity. Here's the reality: energy wasted on the uncontrollable only fuels negative thinking. When you try to bend the world to your will, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. You can't control the economy, the weather, other people's decisions, or random events that life throws at you. But you can control your response. And that's exactly what Stoicism teaches. Your peace comes not from controlling the world, but from mastering yourself within it. Epictetus put it perfectly: the chief task in life is to separate the things you can control from those you cannot. That separation is where your freedom lies. The moment you stop trying to dominate the uncontrollable, you free yourself from anxiety, resentment, and wasted energy. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "How will I respond?" That shift changes everything. Let me give you a story. A man I know, let's call him David, used to spiral into negativity every time something went wrong at work. If his boss criticized him, he'd stew over it for days. If a client left for a competitor, he'd take it personally, replaying what he could have done differently. His mind was trapped in a cycle of what-ifs and if-onlys. But then, David started studying Stoicism. He realized that none of those things were fully within his control. What was in his control? His effort, his attitude, his willingness to improve. So instead of drowning in negativity, he shifted his focus. When his boss criticized him, he took what was useful and left the rest. When clients left, he doubled down on providing value to those who stayed. And slowly, the negativity faded. Why? Because he stopped wasting energy on things that weren't his to control. So how do you practice the law of control in your own life? First, make the distinction daily. Ask yourself, is this within my power or outside of it? If it's outside, let it go. Second, train your focus. Redirect your energy to the things you can shape: your effort, your discipline, your choices. And third, remind yourself that freedom comes from control over yourself, not over others. At the end of the day, negativity thrives where control is impossible. But peace grows where control is clear. When you stop fighting battles that were never yours to win, you gain the strength to master the one battle that matters most, the one within your own mind. That's the law of control, and it's the first step to rewiring your thinking. Number 2, law of perspective. Let's talk about one of the most powerful Stoic truths, the law of perspective. Life is full of events you can't predict and outcomes you can't control. People will criticize you, plans will fail, and unexpected challenges will show up. But here's the thing. It's not the events themselves that disturb you, it's the story you attach to them. Two people can face the same setback. One crumbles while the other grows stronger. What makes the difference? Perspective. Here's the truth. Change the story and you change the outcome. When something painful happens, your mind immediately creates a narrative. This is unfair. I'm not good enough. Why me? That story fuels your negativity. But the Stoics teach us that events are neutral. It's your judgment, your interpretation, that turns them into suffering or strength. You can't always control what happens, but you can always control how you frame it. Marcus Aurelius put it simply: if you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your judgment. Read that again. The pain isn't in the event, it's in how you interpret the event, and that means you always have power. Shift the perspective and you reclaim control over your mind. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Emily, was passed over for a promotion she'd been working toward for years. At first, she was crushed. She thought, "I've failed. All my hard work was for nothing." That story consumed her, and the negativity began to spread into other areas of her life. But then Emily remembered something she'd once read from the Stoics. You can't control outcomes, only effort. She reframed the story. Instead of telling herself she was a failure, she started telling herself, "This is feedback. This is fuel. I'll use this as a chance to sharpen my skills and be undeniable next time." Same event, different perspective. And within a year, she wasn't just promoted, she was thriving, stronger than she'd ever been. So how do you apply the law of perspective in your own life? First, pause before reacting. When something happens, resist the urge to instantly label it as good or bad. Second, reframe the narrative. Ask yourself, what else could this mean? How could this serve me instead of hurt me? And third, practice gratitude even in setbacks. Every challenge can be seen as an opportunity to grow if you choose to see it that way. At the end of the day, life will never stop throwing curveballs. But negativity only thrives when you let your perspective turn neutral events into personal tragedies. When you master the law of perspective, you stop being a victim of your circumstances and start becoming the author of your story. Number 3, law of acceptance. Let's talk about one of the hardest but most freeing Stoic lessons, the law of acceptance. Life doesn't follow your script. No matter how much you plan, no matter how much you hope, reality will always have the final say. People will act differently than you expect, outcomes won't always match your efforts, and sometimes life will just blindside you. But here's the thing, your suffering doesn't come from the event itself, it comes from resisting what already is. Here's the truth. Accepting reality instantly kills frustration. The more you demand that life match your expectations, the more disappointed you'll feel. Every "this shouldn't have happened" thought fuels negativity and keeps you stuck. But the moment you accept what's in front of you, exactly as it is, you reclaim peace. Acceptance doesn't mean you like it. It doesn't mean you don't take action. It means you stop wasting energy fighting what's already real and instead focus on what you can do next. Epictetus said it best: "Don't demand things happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do." That's not passivity. It's wisdom. It's choosing to align yourself with reality instead of exhausting yourself against it. When you accept, you flow with life instead of fighting against the current. And in that flow, negativity dissolves. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Michael, once lost his job unexpectedly. He had worked hard, done everything right, and yet one day the company downsized and he was out. At first, he resisted reality. He kept thinking, "This isn't fair. This shouldn't have happened. I don't deserve this." That resistance only deepened his frustration and made him bitter. But eventually, Michael shifted. He realized no amount of anger or denial would change the fact. He was no longer employed. Once he accepted it, his mindset changed. He asked himself, "Okay, this happened. What now?" That shift in perspective freed him from negativity. Within months, he started his own business, something he never would have pursued if he had stayed stuck in resistance. So, how do you apply the law of acceptance in your life? First, notice your resistance. Pay attention to when your mind says, "This shouldn't be happening." That's your signal. Second, remind yourself, reality doesn't ask for your permission. What's done is done. Fighting it changes nothing. And third, practice active acceptance. Instead of obsessing over "why me?" ask "what now?" That question shifts you from resentment to responsibility. At the end of the day, frustration is just resistance wearing a mask. The more you argue with reality, the more negativity takes root. But the moment you accept life as it is, you cut off negativity at its source. Acceptance doesn't make you weak, it makes you free. When you embrace the law of acceptance, you stop demanding that life bend to your will, and instead learn to bend your will toward life. If you've watched the video this far, don't forget to leave a comment with a "thank God" and give it a like if you enjoyed the content. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting videos. I hope you find inspiration in them and that we continue learning together. Thank you for your support. Number 4. Law of action. Let's talk about one of the most underestimated Stoic principles, the law of action. Nothing feeds negative thinking more than idleness. When your mind has no direction, it begins to spiral. You replay regrets from the past, you worry about the future, and your thoughts start running in circles. But the moment you take action, even a small one, you cut through that spiral like a blade. Here's the truth. Worry grows in idleness, but action kills it. The human mind is not built to sit endlessly in thought. It's built to move, to act, to create. When you're stuck in negativity, the temptation is to wait until you feel better before doing something. But Stoicism flips that script. It teaches that you act first, and the clarity follows. The smallest forward step, no matter how insignificant it feels, breaks the cycle of despair. Epictetus said it best. First, say to yourself what you would be. Then, do what you have to do. Notice that order. You decide who you want to be, then you act accordingly. Not tomorrow, not when conditions are perfect. Today, now. By acting in alignment with your values, you remind yourself that you're not helpless, you're not trapped, you're in control of your choices. Let me share a story. A young man I know, let's call him Jason, fell into a deep rut after a series of setbacks. He had lost his job, his relationship ended, and he felt paralyzed. The more he sat at home doing nothing, the louder his negative thoughts became. Days blurred into weeks, and his energy sank lower and lower. But one day, almost out of frustration, he decided to do something small. He went for a walk. That single walk led to a routine. The routine led to polishing his resume. That led to job applications. Slowly, the fog lifted. Jason realized something powerful. It wasn't thinking that got him out of the spiral. It was action. So how do you live by the law of action? First, stop waiting for motivation. Motivation isn't the starting point. It's the byproduct of doing. Second, shrink the step. When negativity feels heavy, don't focus on the mountain. Just take the first step in front of you. Third, commit daily. Build habits of action, whether it's exercise, journaling, working on a project, or reaching out to someone that remind you you're not stuck, you're moving forward. At the end of the day, negativity thrives in stillness. The more you sit, the more your mind convinces you that nothing can change. But the moment you act, you prove that change is possible. The law of action isn't about giant leaps. It's about consistent steps that carry you out of despair and into strength. And once you see the power of action, you'll never again let worry trap you in idleness. Number 5. Law of gratitude. Let's talk about one of the simplest yet most transformative Stoic practices, the law of gratitude. Negativity has a very specific diet. It thrives on lack. When your mind is focused on what's missing, what's unfair, or what you don't yet have, it breeds frustration and despair. But gratitude flips that script completely. The moment you shift your attention to what you already have, the negativity starves. Here's the truth. Gratitude kills negativity by shifting focus to abundance. It doesn't mean pretending life is perfect. It means choosing to recognize what's present instead of obsessing over what's absent. Gratitude is perspective in action. The same event can leave one person bitter while leaving another person stronger, simply because of what they choose to notice. Epictetus captured it perfectly. He is a wise man who does not grieve for what he has not, but rejoices in what he has. Think about that for a moment. Wisdom isn't in chasing everything you lack. It's in realizing you already have more than enough to live well. When you anchor yourself in gratitude, you stop comparing, stop resenting, and stop letting negativity dictate your thoughts. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Sarah, was always focused on what she didn't have. She had a good job, a loving family, and a safe home. But her mind was constantly racing. If only I had more money. If only I had a bigger house. If only my life looked like theirs. This mindset left her anxious and unfulfilled, even though she had everything she once prayed for. One day, after reading Marcus Aurelius, she decided to try something different. Every night before bed, she wrote down 3 things she was grateful for. Small things, like a meal she enjoyed, a kind word from her daughter, or the quiet peace of the evening. Within weeks, her mindset shifted. The same life that once felt empty now felt full. Nothing outside changed. Her circumstances were the same. But gratitude rewired her mind and silenced the negativity that had once ruled her thoughts. So how do you practice the law of gratitude? First, notice the ordinary. Don't wait for something big. Start by appreciating what's already in front of you: your health, your breath, your relationships, your opportunities. Second, practice daily. Write it down, say it out loud, or take a moment in silence to acknowledge what you're thankful for. And third, use gratitude as a weapon against envy. Whenever you catch yourself comparing your life to someone else's, remind yourself of everything you have that someone else is dreaming of. At the end of the day, negativity and gratitude can't coexist. One feeds on emptiness, the other fills it. The law of gratitude is not about denying life's challenges. It's about choosing to see life's gifts. When you live in gratitude, your mind rewires itself away from lack and toward peace, and negativity loses its power. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 6. Law of discomfort. Let's talk about a Stoic principle that separates the weak from the strong: the law of discomfort. Negativity doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It grows in a mind that avoids challenge, that always seeks comfort, that runs from difficulty. Why? Because a comfortable life often breeds a restless mind. When you never test yourself, every small struggle feels overwhelming. But the Stoics knew that strength is born in hardship. The more you embrace discomfort, the less power negativity has over you. Here's the truth: weakness feeds negativity, while strength grows in discomfort. A person who avoids difficulty becomes fragile, and fragility makes even small problems feel catastrophic. But when you deliberately step into discomfort, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional, you toughen yourself. You stop fearing challenges because you've already proven you can survive them. And once you've built that resilience, negativity dissolves, because you're no longer afraid of struggle, you welcome it. Seneca put it best: the greater the difficulty, the more glory in overcoming it. Struggle isn't a punishment, it's an opportunity. Every obstacle is a chance to grow stronger, and every hardship carries with it the seeds of wisdom. The Stoics trained themselves to lean into discomfort, not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they knew it was the only way to build strength of character. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Chris, used to avoid anything that felt hard. He hated working out because it was uncomfortable. He avoided tough conversations because they made him anxious. He even stayed in a job he disliked because the idea of starting over seemed too painful. But the problem was, the more he avoided discomfort, the more negativity grew in his life. He felt powerless, stagnant, and stuck. One day, after reading Stoic teachings, Chris decided to do the opposite. He chose discomfort. He started with cold showers, then committed to running every morning, then faced the conversation he'd been avoiding with his boss. Slowly, he discovered something life-changing. Every time he stepped into discomfort, he gained strength, confidence, and clarity. And with each win, the negativity that once ruled him began to fade. So how do you practice the law of discomfort? First, reframe difficulty. Don't see it as something to fear, see it as training. Second, practice voluntary discomfort. Try fasting, exercising harder, waking up earlier, or doing something you normally avoid. These small acts build resilience. And third, embrace struggle instead of resenting it. The next time life throws a challenge at you, don't ask, "Why me?" Ask, "What strength will this build in me?" At the end of the day, a life without discomfort looks easy, but it produces weakness. And weakness feeds negativity. But when you embrace discomfort, you toughen your mind, sharpen your character, and starve negativity at its root. The law of discomfort is simple. Seek struggle, and you'll find strength. Number 7. Law of mortality. Let's talk about one of the most sobering yet liberating Stoic truths, the law of mortality. Most of the things you fear, stress about, or get angry over shrink to nothing when you remember one fact: life is short. The deadlines, the arguments, the comparisons, the small humiliations, all of it becomes insignificant when you realize that one day you won't even be here to care about it. That's not meant to scare you, it's meant to wake you up. Here's the truth: negativity shrinks when time feels short. The human mind loves to inflate problems, to make them feel eternal. But mortality reminds us that time is limited, and wasting it on negativity is the greatest tragedy. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "If I only had a few days left, would this even matter?" The answer almost always reveals how small your problems really are. Marcus Aurelius gave us the ultimate reminder: you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. That wasn't meant to be depressing, it was meant to be clarifying. If you lived each day as if it could be your last, how much energy would you still give to envy, grudges, or fear? Death doesn't just take away life, it strips away illusions. And if you let it guide you, it can strip away your negativity too. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Robert, used to be consumed by worry. Every little thing at work felt like the end of the world. Every mistake haunted him. Every delay, every rejection felt unbearable. But then, one night, after losing a close family member, he had a realization. None of the things he obsessed over truly mattered. His loved ones passing reminded him of the fragility of life, and in that moment he asked himself, "If I were gone tomorrow, what would I wish I had spent my time on today?" The answer was clear: love, kindness, courage, and presence. From that day on, Robert lived differently. He didn't stop caring about his responsibilities, but he stopped letting small setbacks ruin his peace. Why? Because he understood that time was too precious to waste on negativity. So how do you practice the law of mortality? First, use it as perspective. When negativity rises, remind yourself, life is short, and most of these problems are temporary. Second, live urgently but wisely. Don't delay the things that truly matter. Express love, take risks, pursue meaning, and let go of grudges. And third, practice memento mori. Remember death daily. Not as fear, but as a compass that points you toward what matters most. At the end of the day, mortality isn't your enemy, it's your greatest teacher. When you live with the awareness that time is limited, negativity loses its grip. You stop obsessing over the trivial and start focusing on what's eternal: how you live, how you love, and how you leave the world a little better than you found it. If you believe this video can help others, give it a like. It helps the YouTube algorithm show it to more people. And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content coming your way. Share your thoughts in the comments. I will definitely reply. Number 8. Law of silence. Let's talk about one of the most underrated but powerful Stoic tools, the law of silence. Not every insult, not every attack, and not every opinion deserves a reaction. The world is full of people who thrive on provoking you, who want to pull you into arguments, or who simply love to see you lose your calm. But here's the thing: negative energy only grows when you feed it. The moment you refuse to respond, it starves. Here's the truth: silence is strength. Many people believe reacting quickly makes them powerful, but in reality, it makes them predictable and easy to manipulate. When you let every comment, every criticism, or every provocation control your emotions, you give away your power. But silence, calm, deliberate silence, shifts the dynamic completely. It says, "I won't be dragged into your chaos." It shows mastery over yourself, which is the very heart of Stoicism. Seneca captured it perfectly. Silence is sometimes the most powerful answer. Think about that. Words can escalate conflict, but silence can dissolve it. Silence denies the aggressor the satisfaction they crave. Silence turns the spotlight back on them, exposing their intentions, while you remain grounded and untouchable. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Daniel, was often targeted by a co-worker who loved making sarcastic remarks. At meetings, this co-worker would throw little jabs to make him look small in front of others. At first, Daniel would defend himself, explain, argue, but every time he did, it gave his co-worker more material and more power. One day, Daniel decided to try something different. Instead of responding, he just looked at him silently. No expression, no words. The silence lingered. The room grew uncomfortable, and something shifted. His co-worker lost the power. Without Daniel's reaction, the insults fell flat. Over time, the sarcasm stopped altogether. Daniel learned that his silence spoke louder than any words ever could. So how do you practice the law of silence? First, recognize bait. Not every comment deserves your energy. Ask yourself, is this worth breaking my peace? Second, use silence as discipline. Instead of rushing to defend yourself, let silence do the work. Often, people reveal their own weakness when you don't react. And third, choose your words sparingly. When you do speak, let it be intentional and measured, not emotional and reactive. At the end of the day, silence is not weakness, it's control. Negativity thrives on reaction, but dies in stillness. When you embrace the law of silence, you protect your energy, maintain your dignity, and show mastery over yourself. Remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. If you've watched the video this far, don't forget to leave a comment with a "thank God" and give it a like if you enjoyed the content. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting videos. I hope you find inspiration in them and that we continue learning together. Thank you for your support.